Bare patches are probably the #1 complaint I get about lawns, and almost every time, whatever the person tried before made things worse instead of better. They toss a handful of seed onto dirt that's basically packed like concrete, walk away, and 3 weeks later they're staring at the same dead spot wondering what happened. Nothing was wrong with the seed. The problem is everything that happens, or doesn't happen, before that seed ever touches the ground. Once you understand what a seed actually needs to survive its first couple weeks, you stop wasting bags of it on patches that were never going to take in the first place. Everything in this video, plus the full monthly lawn schedule, watering charts, and fixes for pretty much every problem your lawn runs into over a year, is laid out in my lawn care ebook. If you'd rather have all of it in one place instead of digging through videos every time something comes up, the link's in the description below. Grab it before we get into this, then come back and keep watching. Patches show up for different reasons, and the reason changes what you actually need to do about it. Grubs chew through roots underneath the surface, and you'll know that's the cause because dead grass just lifts right off the ground when you pull on it. Barely any root holding it down. Dog urine leaves a ring pattern, dead grass right in the center with an almost too green border around it, because the nitrogen right where the dog went was concentrated enough to kill everything, while a foot away that same nitrogen just fed the grass. Compaction usually comes from a path people or a dog walk over again and again, packing the dirt down so hard that roots can't push into it no matter how much seed lands there. Fungus spreads in irregular blotches that don't quite match a normal dead spot, and sometimes the texture's a little different if you look closely. There's one cause that basically nobody talks about, which happens to be exactly what's wrecking my yard right now. Ants build mounds under the grass, and you don't notice until your mower catches one and rips the top layer clean off. That's the patch I'm dealing with today, but it really doesn't matter which of these caused yours. The fix works about the same either way once you know what you're looking at. Before touching any seed, figure out what actually caused your patch. If there's an active grub problem underneath, or the soil's compacted like a driveway, reseeding over that without fixing the actual cause just means you're back here in a month, annoyed, wondering why nothing grew again. Pull on the dead grass first. If it comes up loose with barely any root attached, that's grubs, and you'll want to deal with that before seed goes down. Push a screwdriver into the dirt. If it barely goes in an inch, that's compaction, and you'll need to loosen things up more than usual before starting anything else. For most other situations, including my ant mess, the process below handles it on its own. Understanding what caused the damage is one part of this. Knowing exactly how to rebuild the soil underneath so new grass actually sticks around instead of dying back again in a month is a different problem, and it's one I go through step by step for every grass type in the ebook, since the fix looks a little different depending on what's growing in your yard already. The link's in the description if you want that full breakdown alongside everything else in this video. Timing trips a lot of people up. Spring and early fall are genuinely the better windows if your schedule allows it, mostly because soil temperature during those months sits right where seed germinates fast, without the young grass getting cooked by heat while it's trying to establish. That said, summer repairs still work fine. I'm filming this one in June, already into the heat. It just shifts more responsibility onto you to keep the soil moist, since summer sun dries out a shallow, freshly seeded patch a lot quicker than cooler weather would. Doing this during a hot July stretch. Water it twice a day, don't skip it. September's more forgiving, once a day usually keeps things damp enough. Picking seed is another spot where people either stress too much or barely think about it. For most yards, a basic all-purpose cool season blend from any garden center does the job fine. But if the patch sits under a tree, along a shaded fence, anywhere that doesn't get much direct sun through the day, skip that all-purpose bag. Shade blends exist because regular seed genuinely struggles without enough light, and it'll thin right back out within a season if you plant the wrong type in a spot like that. Match the seed to where you're actually putting it, not to whatever's already growing across the rest of the yard. First real step is clearing the area. Get down there and pull out dead grass, roots, sticks, whatever leaves or small rocks are sitting on top. It doesn't need to be spotless. You just need enough surface exposed that seed lands on real dirt instead of a pile of dead plant matter it's never going to sprout through. My patch has a bunch of dead root left over from where the ants killed everything off, so that's coming out first. Once it's cleared, grab a rake and loosen up that top layer. You're not digging a hole here, just breaking that hard crust so what's underneath is loose enough for new roots to actually get into it. People skip this constantly, and it's a big reason seed fails. Seed sitting on packed, undisturbed dirt has nowhere to root down into, so it just sits there, dries out, and never really gets going. Something specific to what I'm dealing with might apply to you too, depending on your situation. Since there was an ant mound right here, the ground sank a little once I cleared the tunnels out from underneath. If your patch has a similar dip, whether that's from an old mound, a root that got pulled out, or just erosion over time, level it before seed goes down. Use topsoil for this, not compost. Compost breaks down and shrinks over time, so a patch leveled with it sinks right back down in a couple months, and you're dealing with the same dip all over. Topsoil holds its shape a lot better. Add small scoops, spread it flush with the surrounding grass, press it down with your foot so there's no hollow spot hiding underneath. Now the seed itself. Sprinkle it across at a moderate rate, don't go overboard. A thick, piled-on layer actually works against you, because the seedlings end up fighting each other for light and water and root space, and germination rates drop instead of going up. Light, even, reasonably generous is what you want. Toss a little seed past the edges of the bare spot too, blending it into the healthy grass around it, so you're not left with an obvious ring where new grass meets old later on. This next part decides whether the whole repair works or quietly fails on you. Once the seed's down, cover it with a thin layer of soil, just enough to lightly hide it, kind of like dusting flour over something rather than burying it. This does two things at once. It keeps birds from picking your seed off before it gets a chance to sprout, and it gives the seed actual contact with soil, which is what triggers germination in the first place. Seed left exposed on top dries out fast and usually gets eaten anyway. Seed with a light dusting stays protected and holds moisture better. Don't go too deep though. Bury it too far down and you'll smother it, and it never makes it to the surface. After spreading that layer, press down gently, just enough to firm up contact without packing it down hard. Watering's next, and patience with the hose actually matters here. Set it to a light mist, not a strong stream. You want that top layer staying evenly damp, not soaked to where it's puddling. Puddling causes its own problem. Moving water washes seed downhill into one corner, and you end up with a thick clump in one spot and basically nothing anywhere else on the patch. A gentle, even mist avoids all of that. From here it's mostly waiting, though not the kind where you walk away and forget about it. The biggest threat to freshly seeded soil is that top layer drying out before germination even happens. Once it dries, seeds that were just starting to sprout can die before they ever break through. During dry weather, water at least twice a day, enough to keep that top inch consistently moist without drowning it. Cooler spring or fall weather, once a day is usually enough. Under normal conditions, you'll typically see thin green shoots poking through somewhere between 7 and 10 days in. Once those shoots show up, don't rush to treat that spot like the rest of your lawn right away. New grass needs a few weeks before it can handle regular foot traffic or a normal mow. Keep pets and kids off it if you can manage it, and hold off mowing until the new blades hit around 3 inches. When you finally do mow it, sharp blade, only trim the top third of the grass length. Scalping brand new grass on its first cut wipes out weeks of growth in a single pass, and that's a rough way to undo the work you just put in. A few months back, I repaired a much bigger bare patch around my greenhouse using this exact process. Same clearing, same raking, same topsoil leveling, same seed and soil dusting. I gave an update a few weeks after planting it, and I want to walk you over there now so you can see how it's holding up well past that early recovery window. Standing here now, this whole area is filled in completely, thick enough that walking across it feels more like carpet than grass. Growth really picked up once I started mowing it on a regular schedule and feeding it consistently. Regular mowing pushes grass to spread outward and thicken up, instead of just growing taller and thinner, and the fertilizer gave it what it needed to keep producing new growth instead of stalling out after that first round of germination. Couple rougher patches behind this main section, and those come from the exact same ant mound problem I'm dealing with on the front lawn in this video. The mower keeps clipping the raised mounds and tearing up fresh grass every time. But since I already know this method works, and I've watched it succeed on a much bigger patch than the one I fixed today, cleaning those spots up is just repeating the same steps again. Nothing complicated about it once you understand what each step's actually doing and why. One thing worth mentioning, because I get asked about it a lot. People want to know if there's a way to speed the whole process up, and there's a limit to how much you actually should push it. You can use a starter fertilizer made specifically for new grass when you seed, and that genuinely helps push root development faster than seed and soil alone. Just don't reach for regular all-purpose lawn fertilizer for this part. That stuff usually has way more nitrogen than a brand new root system can handle, and it can burn young grass before it's had a real chance to establish. Starter fertilizers formulated differently leans more toward root growth than leaf growth, which is exactly what a patch needs in its first few weeks. Another thing that trips people up is walking across the repaired area without even realizing it. Sounds small, but a few footsteps across freshly seeded soil can press seed too deep or knock it out of place, especially that first week before anything's rooted in yet. If it's an area you or your family walk through a lot, might be worth blocking it off for a bit. Even something as basic as a couple garden stakes with string tied between them. Looks a little rough for a week or two, but it saves you from redoing the whole thing because someone cut across the yard without thinking. Weather matters beyond just heat too. Heavy rain right after you seed isn't automatically bad, but a hard, driving rain does the same thing puddling water does, pushes seed around and leaves you with uneven growth. If you know a storm's coming within the first couple days after seeding, laying a thin layer of straw over the area isn't a bad move. Straw holds seed in place and keeps moisture a bit more even, without blocking sunlight the way something heavier would. Don't overdo it though. Light scattering's enough, since piling it on traps too much moisture, and you end up with mold instead of grass. It's worth checking your patch regularly during that germination stretch, instead of watering on autopilot and walking away. Some spots dry out faster than others depending on sun exposure, wind, or how close they sit to a slope. A patch against a south-facing wall needs more attention than one shaded under a tree most of the day. Get a feel for your yard's specific hotspots and adjust watering instead of treating every square foot the same way. If after 2 weeks you're seeing patchy, uneven growth instead of a solid fill, don't rip everything out. Sometimes it just means certain sections got more moisture or better soil contact than others did. You can lightly reseed just the thin spots using the same steps, seed down, light dusting of soil, gentle watering, without redoing the whole patch from scratch. A lot less work than starting over, and it usually fills in the gaps within another week or two. People ask a lot whether sod would just be easier than all this. Sometimes yes. If you've got a big patch, something the size of a car hood or bigger, sod gives you an instant fix instead of waiting weeks for seed to fill in. But sod's expensive compared to a bag of seed, and it needs almost daily watering for the first 2 to 3 weeks while the roots knit into the soil underneath. For smaller spots, the kind most people are actually dealing with, seed's cheaper, and once you know the process, it doesn't take much longer to get a solid result. I'd only reach for sod on patches bigger than maybe 3 feet across, or if the area needs to be usable again fast, like before a party where waiting 6 weeks isn't really an option. Soil quality underneath the patch matters more than people give it credit for. If your yard's naturally got clay-heavy soil, water sits on the surface longer than it should, which sounds helpful for a seed bed but actually causes its own problems, mainly seed rotting before it ever germinates. If you're dealing with clay soil, mix a little compost or sand into that top inch while you're loosening things up with the rake. Not enough to change the whole composition of your yard, just enough to help water drain through instead of pooling right on top of your seed. Sandy soil's the opposite problem, drains too fast and dries out even quicker than normal. So if that's your situation, water a little more often than what I mentioned earlier, maybe adding an extra light pass midday if it's especially hot out. Birds aren't the only wildlife interested in a freshly seeded patch either. Squirrels will dig little holes looking for buried nuts, or just out of habit, and they'll wreck a seedbed doing it, especially in neighborhoods with a lot of oak trees around. If squirrels are a known problem where you live, a light layer of thin garden netting over the patch for the first week or two keeps them from digging without blocking sunlight or water from getting through. Just remove it once the grass starts coming up, so it doesn't tangle around the new blades as they grow. Fertilizing your existing lawn before you even get to the patch repair isn't something most guides mention, but it matters. If the grass surrounding your bare spot is stressed, thin, or lacking nutrients itself, it's going to compete with your new seedlings for whatever's in the soil once they're growing side by side. Giving your whole lawn a light feeding a week or two before you tackle the patch means the established grass isn't starving right next to the new growth, and it also helps that surrounding grass push outward a little on its own, filling in some of the edges before your seed even sprouts. People also ask about mixing grass types when patching, especially if their existing lawn's already a blend of a few different species. Generally, you want to match whatever's already growing there as closely as you can, since mismatched grass types create visible texture differences even after everything's fully grown in. Different blade width, different shade of green, sometimes different growth patterns that make mowing look uneven. If you genuinely don't know what's growing in your yard already, most garden centers can help you figure it out if you bring in a small clipping, or you can look up common regional blends since most areas have 2 or 3 dominant types showing up in the majority of yards there. Something worth mentioning if you're patching a spot right next to a driveway or sidewalk, Concrete and asphalt hold heat and radiate it back out for hours after the sun's gone down, so grass growing along the edge of a driveway deals with higher soil temperatures than the rest of your yard, even at night. If your bare spot borders pavement, water that edge a little more generously than the center of the patch, since it's drying out faster than you'd expect just from sitting close to the concrete. I didn't realize this myself until I noticed one edge of a patch I fixed last summer kept struggling while the rest filled in fine, and it took me a minute to connect it to the sidewalk sitting 18 inches away. Mowing height on the rest of your lawn affects how well a patch blends in too, not just how the new grass grows on its own. If you're cutting the surrounding lawn really short, out of habit, or just because that's how you've always done it, your new patch will stick out even once it's fully grown in, because shorter grass around it emphasizes any slight difference in shade or density. Raising your mower height overall, even just half an inch, helps established grass blend in better, and puts less stress on your whole lawn during hot months, which is really a bonus on top of the patch repair itself. If you've patched the same spot more than once, and it keeps dying back no matter what you do, the actual problem probably isn't the seed or the process at all. Something environmental is working against you consistently, whether that's a drainage issue where water pools every time it rains, a tree root system pulling all the moisture and nutrients out of that specific area, or just not enough sunlight reaching that patch through most of the day. Repeated failure in the exact same spot is usually a sign to step back and figure out what's actually different about that location compared to the rest of your yard, rather than repeating the same seeding process and hoping for a different result a third or fourth time. That covers the full process from figuring out what caused your patch to keeping it alive long after the seed sprouts. If you want the complete version of this, along with seasonal watering charts, fertilizing timelines, and fixes for basically every other lawn problem you'll deal with across the year, the ebook link is in the description below. If this helped you out, hit the like button and send it to a neighbor who's dealing with the same bare spot problem.